Today we're going to remove the front wheel of a CBR 1000 and replace the front wheel. First we're going to take our 22mm wrench and we're going to break the axle nut free. We're not going to remove it all the way because we're going to use it to push the axle out the other side. Then we're going to take a 14mm socket and we're going to remove the bolts that hold the caliper on.
I'm not feeling it. If a CBR owner doesn't know how to change out brake pads, maybe they shouldn't be on a bike. Well, that's true. That's one of the easiest damn things to do, that's for sure.
So once you have the bolts out, give the caliper a little wiggle on the rotor, and that'll separate the pads enough so you can slide that caliper past the wheel without scratching the paint on the wheel. Now we take a 12mm and we loosen up the cinch bolts on the front of the forks. And again with the 14mm, we're going to remove the bolts that hold the caliper on. Again, wiggle that caliper on the brake rotor and it gives just a little bit more play so you don't scratch the paint. Now we just want to bump that axle bolt and knock the axle out, and then completely remove the axle bolt, lift the weight off the wheel and slide the axle out of the bike. It's a good idea when you remove your wheel to remove the spacers. Put the right one on the right side, the left one on the left side so you don't get them mixed up when you're putting it back together. I always like to put a light coat of grease on my axles before I install it. It just makes it easier to pull that axle out next time. So once the grease is on the axle, we're going to take our new tire and wheel, we're going to lift it up. We're going to line everything up with our forks and we're going to shove that greased axle through the fork and through the wheel. And if you have problems doing this is your first time doing it, you're not alone. Everybody has issues their first time. So we're going to take our axle nut and we're going to snug it down. So we're not going to tighten it down all the way. We're just going to snug it down and line everything up. Now with our 12mm socket, we're going to go ahead and we're going to tighten down these cinch bolts on the bottom of the forks. They act as a clamp to keep your axle from spinning around, coming out. We're going to slide our front caliper back on. Sometimes the brake pads kind of get out of alignment in there, so you have to separate them back apart so they'll slide over that disc. And we're just going to put our bolts back into the calipers. So now that we have the left side tightened down, we're going to go ahead and tighten down our axle bolt, and that'll align the wheel with the forks, and then we'll tighten down the cinch bolts on the right hand side. And again, we're just going to slide our caliper onto the disc, line it up with the forks, and put our bolts in. Don't forget to pump the front brake lever. We don't want our friend to jump out on the highway and not have any front brakes. And thanks for watching my video. Please watch some of my other ones.